introduce himself, and then I'll introduce myself. And we just want to welcome you to today's webinar, and we hope you get a lot out of it.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about virtual selling, and I am the founder, CEO of Tier Level Digital Marketing, a company that specifically was built on servicing the restoration industry. We work with hundreds of locations across the country in the restoration industry, from running their digital marketing to doing off one-off trainings and things like that. When it comes to selling, myself and Eddie have both worked in the field, so our background is a little more unique when it comes to the topic of digital marketing, virtual selling. We've actually done the work and been there. Just before I let Eddie get started, I put a question up at the beginning of what areas of virtual selling is the hardest for you. And surprisingly, email was one of the highest ones. And I'm thinking that's a lot like what Tristan said earlier is, sending emails, nobody's responding. So maybe we need to talk a little bit about what those emails look like, and what does the follow up look like, when you get to email. Not many of you pick text messaging. I know text messaging has an extremely high open rate. We're going to talk about in webinars, like, why haven't you used webinars? Zoom has become so accessible to do exactly what we're doing here, whether you do it one-on-one or you want to host a larger group with 20, 30, 40, 50 plus people or more. It's possible now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Eddie to introduce himself. We're excited that you guys are here. Please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box when we get done. If we don't answer them throughout the presentation, we'll be sure to answer them at the end.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sean. My name's Eddie Green. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Tier Level Digital Marketing. As Sean had said, my background in restoration was I'm a former Director of Business Development, multi-million dollar sales guy from the commercial side. So this, virtual selling, something that I've been doing my entire career. It wasn't something that just kind of showed its face during the pandemic, but I want to show you now that just exactly how virtual selling has become probably the most vital aspect to your business, being able to do business. And I think a lot of us went into this mindset when the pandemic started that this was going to be 6 months and done. It was like a shiny new toy. Everybody was excited to get on Zoom, and now when you see this is a new world that we live in businesses being conducted virtually almost by request for businesses now, and all that shiny new toy has worn off. And the situation is that this is the future of how we are going to be conducting businesses, by being an extremely well-rounded blended salesperson. And for those of you that aren't embracing this, it's time that it's time for you to do so, because it's not going away. In fact, I just read that there are 7 new mutation strains out there that are highly resistant to the vaccine, and it is going to continue to mutate, and this is only getting worse. So it's not trying to preach doom and gloom. I'm just telling you that this is going to be the new way to do business. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to read to you for just a second about virtual selling. When circumstances limit face-to-face selling, virtual selling becomes a vital skill. Right now, times are tough for salespeople. You guys are grappling with a number of negative effects, from no responses to emails, to not being able to garner the virtual meetings, to trying the old tactics of being able to go out and go door knock, and really truthfully being inefficient in what you're doing. So from the coronavirus pandemic, like I said, this is not going away. Like I said, a lot of people thought 6 months in it would be done and we would go back to the normal way of life, but this is the new normal. With the inception of social distancing, buyers are working from home and their needs have shifted. So face-to-face selling is not as practical. Now, we're going to talk about face-to-face selling. It is not dead. Okay. So, and I don't want you to think that it is dead. But there's a way that you have to go about it to be able to garner these meetings. But face-to-face selling is no longer practical for many salespeople, in particular those that are doing business-to-business sales. I know the majority of you guys that are on here are commercially centric salespeople. That's business to business. And, Sean and I were up in Wisconsin, and, we made the mistake of going to the train facility to go meet with their director of operations. And of course, the first thing we find out is he's not there. He's working from home. So it was an inefficient. It took us 30 minutes to get there. So we had an hour of windshield time that was ineffective. Virtual selling, a viable substitute, has assumed a new prominence in the time of coronavirus. Virtual selling is necessary as smart salespeople with an evolve or die mentality try to find their footing in this new world. So, Sean, you want to expand a little bit on this and the importance of it, because, like I said, this is the new way to do business.
Yeah, and I put a poll back up that says, "Have you struggled to get new sales since March of last year?" Because that's kind of when shit hit the ceiling for the country as a whole, and businesses started really shutting down. And I think a lot of it is excuse driven. And we have more resources now in 2021, 2020 that we've ever had when it comes to sales. I think the mindset of what you're truly trying to accomplish is what's really holding you back, because you're so used to going through maybe some type of routine, whether your corporate office has showed you that way and said, hey, I want you to run routes, and you're kind of being programmed like a robot. But you're starting to forget, and this is the one thing that you really have to wrap your mind around. What is it that other human beings are looking for? And a lot of you are saying, I send emails, I show up face to face, all these things, and I'm pretty much just getting the door slammed in my face. Nobody's reading my email. Well, think about what you're sending. Think about your messaging. What are you trying to communicate? Are you truly showing that you have an effort to out care, out educate? We've talked about that on previous webinars. What does that mean to out care, out educate? We're actually, me and Eddie are speaking this Friday at the NAMM show, which is the biggest showcase for musical instruments, artists, retail stores in that industry. And the topic is out care, out educate. And that's a completely virtual event. Like, they're not even having it in person. And that's such a type of event where you have to get your hands on. So, but what we talk about in the out care, out educate, are you providing value to the people that you're reaching out to? Or are you just like every other sales call or email that they're getting that basically says, hey, if you have this happen, we can help, and call us today. And it's junk. And think about your own inbox. How many emails do you not read? Well, you're doing that to other people. And until you get that mindset of actually trying to help somebody, provide value for them, that means of communication is going to be struck down, because it sounds a lot different when you say things like, hey, I'm interested to learn a little bit more about your business. And then also, I want to provide some free resources or some no cost resources or insight for you to help you be better prepared with the COVID crisis, or things to help you get your business back open. You're not talking about transacting a deal or something yet, but through that conversation of hooking them and bringing them in, whether you're using the phone, a webinar, text messaging, email, whatever, you have to find ways to dialogue conversation instead of pushing your agenda on them from the get-go. And I relate it all the time to this. And it's just like dating. You don't go on a first date and throw up all out about yourself and ask for some type of clothes, which probably many of you know what that means, but you have to find ways to draw them in and build that relationship. And if you don't do that, that's why you're not seeing the result. And you know what? The excuse that everything's shut down, I hear it every single day. It's not a viable excuse. People's attention is actually more captive now if you know how to articulate that and know how to catch their attention through many different channels, whether it's digital marketing, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the way down to, podcasting. The amount of Americans that are listening to podcasts now is going through the roof. And those are just some things I want you to wrap your mind around as we get through this, is what can you do different? Don't leave this webinar and continue to do the same thing, or you're going to continue to get the same results. And that's kind of the tone that we want to set for the webinar today.
Absolutely. And, I think the most important aspect about this is that whenever, you're not going into it with realistic expectations, understanding how much work it takes to be able to get somebody to engage. And we're going to be able to talk about that. But, you're in a recession resistant industry. Disasters still happen. In fact, a lot of the people that flourished doing COVID cleanings and was because of the educational format that they put out there to say, to start with the how and the why of they were doing this, and we've talked about this in previous webinars. I've excelled over the phones and selling really big jobs for restoration companies across the country, and never having, not having ever met any of these people face to face. And, so we're going to get into that, because it sounds like we're kind of yelling at you about going, don't do the same things, but we're going to show you how not to do the same things. So, you hear us talk about blended sales all the time. Anytime you see one of these quotes and EG after it, it means it's me. But you cannot perform 2019 tactics in today's new world and expect any measure of success. To go out and to go continue to do the route thing, to go out and continue to drive around and try to get in front of the correct COIs and get past the gatekeepers, there's going to be some success there, because law of averages are going to tell you that some of these essential businesses you may actually get through to. But what I'm talking about, the level of success, is that going out and garnering relationships through door knocking is not good. Door knocking alone is not going to get it anymore. You have to become a master of strategic planning. If you're not setting your next week up on, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we're going to talk about what that looks like, but you're not really planning, researching, writing out scripts of how you want to talk about things, setting up scripted rebuttals for the objections that you're getting, how to effectively get past the gatekeeper, watching webinars like these, reading books on virtual selling, doing the things that you need to do to be able to educate yourself and be able to excel in today's new world. You're setting yourself up for failure. And you have got to become a master of research and strategic planning. The next thing is that you've got to, in especially the younger generation, this is going to be really hard for them, because interpersonal communication has fallen by the wayside, in generations younger than Sean and myself. It's all become about text and email and social media engagement and black and white words, but the phones is where it all starts now. It's the fastest way to be able to get through to somebody, if to be able to have engaging conversation. We're going to show you how to do that. Text and email campaigns, how to be effective. The biggest problem that I see is I'll have people send me examples, and they're putting everything out there. They're spilling everything in one email, and then they don't understand why they have no measure of success. And the reason being is because you've just handed all the control over to the customer, and you have no ability to be able to rebuttal them, because you've already said everything you needed to say. Social media engagement, we'll get into that, about how now it is easier to connect with people, but more importantly, learn and have deeper, meaningful relationships, because you can go through and research and have more engaging conversations and develop questions that are customer centric. Video conferencing, now it has become the new face-to-face meetings on how to close business. And then face-to-face, like I said, it's not dead. So this is going to be the things that we are going to talk about in depth as we get, but this is what it takes to be a successful blended salesperson. It takes you being good in every one of these facets, not just one of them, not just two of them. You've got to be good on all of them. And if you're not, what are you doing to strengthen those weaknesses? If you're having failure, are you learning from those failures and trying different approaches? Or you just keep throwing darts at the map, going, hey, I'm just going to keep trying this, and eventually somebody's going to hit on this. The law of averages will not work in blended sales. And, there are statistics that are going to tell you in a lot of these sales books that you're going to read, that you need to pre-qualify your customer. And, 50% of these people you probably won't do business with because they don't have a need for your services. Well, that does not apply in restoration sales. You provide a service that everybody needs, but nobody wants. Somebody is going to do the work. So you don't give up on customers because they tell you no 5 times, 10 times, 100 times. They are eventually going to have an issue that you can be a solution for. So though those sales books that tell you to move on when they tell you no and go find people that want to do business with you does not apply in restoration sales. It took me sometimes 3, 4, even 5 years to win relationships with persistence. But you have to get in the mindset. Somebody is going to do the work at their facility. Why not you? Why is it not going to be you? You know, if you truly believe that you're the best, you truly believe you provide the most exemplary service, the most customer-centric, solution-based, consultative service, then you can never take no for an answer. And it will, sometimes you will have to take several no's before you finally find a way to educate them to do business with you. So I want you to keep that in mind, that law of averages thing doesn't work in restoration sales. Everybody will at some point need your services. And why isn't it you that's doing the work? Why is your competitor doing the work? So that's the mindset you have to adopt. So let's talk about strategic planning. So the first thing, and I'm gonna say this, I'm not gonna say who, but I had put it out there with a newer restoration company that their business development people needed to be making 60 phone calls on Monday to set their week up. And I was told that that was too aggressive. 60 phone calls, that's way too aggressive. Well, whenever you take a look and you that if the average phone call lasts 5 to 7 minutes, which they don't, you know, the average phone call, you're going to make a bunch of them before you're going to actually have meaningful dialogue, because a lot of people have problems getting past the gatekeeper. But if the average phone call lasts 5 to 7 minutes, you're only working 37 minutes of every hour. So you're only working at 66% work efficiency at 60 phone calls to be able to set up meetings, whether they're virtual meetings, text and email campaigns, or garnering face-to-face meetings. You're only working 66% of the time. So tell me how that is aggressive. I don't think it's aggressive enough. You know, I think that in order for you to be truly effective, you may have to make 100 plus phone calls on Monday to be able to set up meetings, to be able to get through to the right people and be able to have meaningful dialogue and conversation. Are you going through, and on those 100 targets that you're going to set up for Monday, how much research have you done about the companies that you're getting ready to call? Who the COI or the CEO of the problem is going to be that you're going to need to speak with, you know, because knowing who to ask for is half the battle. If I was to call tier level and say, hey, I need to speak to the, you know, whoever makes the decisions, chances are I would never, ever make it to Sean Lewis, because he's got systems set up to pre-screen so that he doesn't have to deal with that. He wants people that know about him, his business, and want to be able to provide solutions before Sean's ever going to entertain that idea. And Sean, you know, I want you to speak a little bit about that, because you as the CEO, you get solicited all the time. You know, what are the things that really turn you off from salespeople coming to try to do business with you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, just like I was saying earlier, it's like I get probably 15 to 20 calls a day and probably 50 to 100 emails a day from people wanting to loan money to do business for a digital marketing service or something that we use on the back end. And it's never relational. It's always like scripted. It's the phone calls are the worst. Like they call, there's like a pause and they're like, hello, Sean. And it's just like, good Lord, these people don't even know how to talk. It's like they're being trained to be a robot. And it's almost at some points, I think they are like an automatic bot or robot. But then you hang on for a little second and you find out, no, they're a real person. They're just reading from a script and they're poorly reading it. So I think it's very important that, you know, the more, I mean, it's like anything in life, the more people you reach out to, you're going to get turned down more times, but you're going to increase the chance of, that 5, 10, 15%. And if you get better at that process on the phone or via email, you're going to at least start to collect data. And that data is going to be more valuable when you can get somebody's email address, get somebody's cell phone number, get somebody's information, at least get the information of, who to talk to. I talked to a sales rep the other day, different industry, but he called me and said, I'm going into places and they're saying we don't talk to people that solicit. Well, don't solicit at that first time. When you walk in, if you are going to do a face to face or a cold call, just walk in and ask who you need to set up a time to speak with. I mean, that's a completely different mindset and approach than saying, "Hey, I want to talk to somebody about XYZ and when we can do business with them." I mean, it's just stupid. I mean, it's absolutely stupid. So, you really have to change that approach and really put the emphasis on, what appeals to me, and am I doing that to other people?
Absolutely, and the thing about it is that it even starts off with the way you're asking for people. If you're going in and you're talking to people and, you're saying, hello, my name is so and so, and I'm with, ABC Restoration. I need to speak with Sean Michael Lewis, please. Okay, well, the gatekeeper's automatically predispositioned to understand that this is a sales call and you're not going to get past them. But if it's more casual, you're like, hey, my name's Eddie, I'm with ABC Restoration, I need to speak with Sean, is he available? And you have the urgency and the intentionality in your voice whenever you ask for them. A lot of times they think that because of how you asked, that Sean's expecting your call, and they'll be like, hold on, let me see if he's available. So, again, we've used in several webinars the fact it's not what you say, but how you say it. And so many people are so timid on the phones, or so scripted, that it's the gatekeepers trained to dodge you. And you've got to develop that confidence. I mean, you are the subject matter expert. You do have something that is urgent, deliberate, and intentional that you need to speak with them about. You're talking a lot of times to these people about how to prevent further damages from occurring. You're trying to be an educational resource in the restoration industry. So it is urgent that you speak with these people, but we're not conveying that urgency. So maybe create a teaser script. It'll be like, well, what's this about? It's just be like, well, I have something urgent that I need to speak with him about. He's going to want to hear it. When would be a good time for me to be able to call back? When are they going to have time? Stop spilling everything that you want to do and say in the entire first paragraph, so that it doesn't give you the ability to be able to follow up. It doesn't give you the ability they've already seen and heard everything that they needed to hear, and they've made the determination that they don't need to do business with you based on what you have just told them. But also, too, it's important that you need to know your analytics for success. And we're going to look at that on the phone call slide, which is the next slide, about how many phone calls it actually potentially takes to be able to get through to a COI. So you have to be a student of the game. But it all starts with the way you plan it out. It is. And if you don't feel confident about being able to get on the phones and be able to do, then you need to seek out people who are good on the phones, and you need to role play with them until you get that certain level of confidence in your voice, because I can promise you they can hear it when you're not. That is the first thing they're going to pick up on, is that you're timid, that you don't know how to approach this, that you don't know how to be good on the phones, and they're going to eat you alive. And if people don't understand that the person on the other end of that line is actively listening to you, and you have to actively listen to them. And it's all starts with your tone, your inflection, the urgency, the intentionality, and the deliberation in which you're calling for. So let's go on and talk about, the phone side of it. So being exceptional on the phones is a lost art. It takes laser focus. It takes extreme active listening and cat-like reflexes to be able to rebuttal objections. So what does that mean? What it means that you have to be actively engaged in the entire process. You have to want to do it. If you don't want to do it, then it's going to come through in your inflection, and people are going to know, the customer's going to pick up on it. They're going to have no desire to talk to you if you're just going through the motions. But look up here at the statistics, the truth about virtual selling. Why is it so difficult? Well, the first one we already talked about. This does not apply in the restoration industry. 50+% of your prospects are not a good fit for what you're selling. Well, that's not true. 100% of the people you're talking to will eventually need your services. So we can throw that out the window. But the next one, the 18, is the number of calls that it actually takes to be able to get in front of the prospective client. And we're discouraged on the first one. Because we don't know the analytics. We don't know what it takes to be successful on the phones. We don't know that it's going to take some time and effort to be able to build that relationship and get through. And then here's the other analytic. 140 is the number of emails a buyer receives every single day. Sean just quantified that whenever he was talking about that. 20% click on open and only 2% will click through. What differentiates you from every single other email that they're getting? What are you doing to be different? How are you choosing? We've talked about this in selling, and I'll go back to it because I don't think that, because I still hear people doing it every day. And the pitch is, hi, my name is so-and-so with ABC Restoration. We are the biggest, we're the best. We can do better service than anybody else in your area, and we would love to have your business. You're no different than Service Master. You're no different than Paul Davis. You're no different than ServPro. You're no different than Belfour. You're no different than ATI, Interstate, PureClean, Blue Team, Lightning. You're no different than any of these other people. So why would I do business with you? I've heard the same thing 500 times. You've given me no reason to do business with you. So when you talk about being urgent, deliberate, and intentional on the phones, the urgency, I need to speak with Sean Lewis. It's as opposed to, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm with ABC Restoration. Can I talk to Sean Lewis, please? My name's Eddie. I'm with ABC Restoration. Could you get Sean for me? The big difference in the two ways that I said it. Now the gatekeeper thinks I have a scheduled meeting potentially. Did I snowball him enough with that urgency? What's this? Does he know that? Is he expecting your call? Well, I am reaching out. He's not necessarily expecting my call, but what I have to say, he's going to want to hear. If now's not a good time, when is? Now I'm being deliberate. Okay. When can I catch him? When can I get a few minutes of his undivided attention? Well, why do you need to talk to him? Because what I have to say, he needs to hear. Now I'm being intentional. Okay. It is, you have that power of inflection to be able to create urgency. You can look at like a waitress that comes up and says, so, hi, my name's Megan. How are you today? Or you stop and say, how are you today? It's different. And you'll get a different response and a different result based on that. The other thing is you got to grow. You got to grow some thick skin. You got to get some calluses here. I'm going to tell you right now, and this is going to sound really shitty and I really don't care, but I'm so sick of listening to the bullshit whining and excuses. It is, oh, I can't do it. Nobody responds to me. Nobody this. What are you doing to figure it out? What are you doing to be different than everyone else? You have to understand you're invading that person's day. You've just thrown a monkey wrench in their routine because you are bugging them. How do you move from bugging to relationship? Because what happens is the control on the other end of the line is easy for the prospective client. If you don't do anything meaningful, you're not urgent, deliberate, and intentional. You don't do anything that matters, click, and then your butt hurt because they hung up on you. And that's going to happen. And you keep calling back until you get through to where you want to get, until you get to the person you need. The phones right now are your way in the door to either a virtual meeting or scheduling a face-to-face. I'm telling you, it is the fastest way to get in. You've got to be good in this area. And you need to have a go-to script that's going to have the top 10 objections and rebuttals that you are getting. As you receive them, you start ranking them so that you can rebuttal, you can overcome the objection and be ready to go. So I'm going to stop here because I know Sean's got some things that he wants to talk about on the phone side of it. And, and like I said, I want you to rise to the challenge. I want you to kind of be offended here about the fact that that we hear more excuses than we do solutions.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think with the phone, it's like Eddie said, it really just takes a lot of practice. It takes, you have to see what works and what doesn't work. And when you learn what doesn't work, which obviously means you're not getting appointments, you're not getting uh, responses that you're looking for, then you need to change that on the fly. You just can't keep doing the same thing, or you're falling right into that definition of insanity. So it's very important that when you're doing this, but at the same time, are you taking detailed notes? Are you keeping records of who you're talking to? One thing I talked about in our team's Monday meeting for what keeps you motivated is, besides my planner, which I still use a written version, along with some digital components. But I have a blank book. It's like 500 pages of blank canvas space. And I'm always, every interaction that I'm having in the day, it's almost like I'm journaling, like I'm documenting what I'm doing in the day. And what's amazing is when I go back a month, a week, a quarter, or even just last week, you really start to see where maybe you forgot to follow up with something. Maybe you had a good opportunity and you found out somebody you were supposed to talk to, but you didn't follow up with it. Documenting your day and kind of road mapping that will really help for productivity and success over the long term. So that's just one thing I really want to add into this is, if you're using a CRM, great. If you can type it in and keep it updated, remind yourself of follow-ups, but good old fashioned pen and paper still has a value, because the reason I like it so much is I could be on the computer, I could be on the phone, and I still have that canvas there to collect thoughts. If something runs through my mind or something I want to say different next time, I can jot it down. And then still, it's like having a book to go back and read. And that's not for everyone. A lot of you might rather use a tablet and write down with an Apple Pen, or an Android tablet or something like that. And that's perfectly fine. But just find what works for you that allows you to document your thoughts and be able to revisit them so you can adjust your strategy as you go.
Absolutely. So the next part of the blended sales thing is the video conferencing. And, the biggest reason that more sales reps aren't successful in video meetings is because they're just simply not asking for them. They're not saying, what, I want to jump on here and have that virtual cup of coffee with you so that we can kind of talk about what you would need from having a relationship with a company like mine. You have so many different formats that are out there: Amazon Chime, Google Meet, Zoom, Skype, Cisco WebEx, all these different platforms that are out there that are making it easy for you to be able to sit down and have the meetings just like today. Today you guys have taken time out of your day to watch this, which is a virtual meeting, so that you can, iron sharpens iron, and hopefully you can come away with more empowered to be successful. Well, what's the difference in us asking you to say, hey, why don't you come listen to us talk about, about virtual selling, versus you asking a prospective client to say, maybe it's an insurance agent, to talk about the differentiation between what it would mean to look like working with you versus working with somebody else. Maybe you're an independent and you're sick and tired of trying to go to these State Farm agents who have program work with who have program work with your Serve Pros, your Service Masters, your Paul Davises, and your Blackman Moorings, and you're trying to figure out how to differentiate yourself. Well, maybe now it's more personal. Maybe you can say, maybe you can even switch the conversation up to say, tell me what you don't like about people like me marketing you, so that I don't make those mistakes. Maybe you're switching that around, as opposed to showing up and throwing up and saying, okay, look here, we're the biggest, best, fastest. This is why you want to do business with us, as we do fire, water, mold, biotrauma, hazmat, order pack out, contents. We do all of this, hoping that you hit a hot button. What would you need? What would you need from me? Who do you currently refer work to? Why do you refer work to them? What do you like about them? If there's anything that you could have changed about the last job that they did for you, what would that be? Here's what it would look like, to work with us, as an independent. You're going to get more personal white glove service. You don't have to operate in those program confines that you have, to where, we're going to do work the right way. The big box companies can talk about differentiation because you have unlimited resources. There's nothing that you can't do. So now you have the power of face-to-face without ever leaving your home. Screen share allows you to be able to make your presentation without a complex setup. We're doing it right now. to tons of you, showing you this is what it takes to be successful in a blended sales environment. So it's not difficult, but are you asking for the meeting? Are you asking and saying, look, on the phone to be like, you know what, I think it would be better for you to see it. Do you have a little bit of time that we can jump on a Zoom call, schedule it, and ask for that meeting? There are so many times with our clients that they will say, hey, when's a good time to jump on a call? I'll be like, I'll send you a Zoom link, because I know if I'm connecting with them whenever I can see them on the phone, whenever I can see their face and be like, you know what, I've missed something here. And I'm not afraid to be able to say that. Obviously, there is something we're not connecting here. I'm missing something. What am I missing? Walk me through it. Where would you want to see this relationship? Where would you want our services to be? Because I just threw up all over you and I didn't hit a single hot button. So what would you need? And I keep coming back to this one story, because this was one of the biggest successes that I had with a grocery store chain. I talked to the risk manager and I point blank asked him, I said, what keeps you up at night? It wasn't fire, water, mold. It wasn't our primary scope of services. It was spoilage. So I had to come up with a different solution for him, but I would have never known if I didn't ask. And that's the problem. We're spending more time telling than asking. And the video conference can show you the connection. They get to know you. It deepens that relationship. So I'm going to let Sean take the lead on this one on text and email campaigns. I think Sean's a master of this. I've got a couple little things that I want to throw in there, but I'm going to let him take the lead on this one.
Real quick, Eddie, we were asked a question by Michael Jekyll. I find sometimes the reply they are happy with their current company they are with. What is the hot button to hit when they respond with that?
Why are they happy? It's like, I respect that. You have to respect the power of relationship. And here's why. If you go and you deepen a relationship with a prospective client, would you want some slick talking salesman to come be able to derail your relationship just because he walked in and had an amazing pitch? So if they like it, you have to understand what that objection is. Do they really truly like the relationship that they have? If so, then they're going to quantify that. But are you asking the why? And you have to respect that power and take the humble approach of going, you know what? I respect that. I'm glad that you do have a relationship with a company like that, because you're so far ahead of the curve. Most people don't. And you know what? I don't mind being your number 2 phone call if they can't get to you. But what all can they do for you? Have they ever sat down and talked about their primary scope of services that they can do for you? Maybe it's an independent company that in a community-wide event, they're going to hit capacity so fast that now this customer is just going to be a number to them. Well, so if I'm a big box company with unlimited resources, I can malign an independent in 2 seconds. I can be like, you're never going to be a number. I have resources. I have regional partners. I can make sure that even in a community-wide event, freeze event, tornado, flood event, snow event, you're taken care of. You'll never be missed. You'll never just be a number. Now, on the flip side of that, I can malign the big box companies too and say, you know what, instead of calling an 800 number, you're going to call me and I'm going to take care of you personally. I am going to ensure that you are not missed. So but are we asking the why question? Are we saying, you know what, that's fantastic that you have a relationship with somebody else. What do you like about it? What do you like about the relationship and what can they do for you? You might find out that they'll do the fire, water, mold and you do the bio. And then you start winning the relationship that way because you start out performing and they see you there more. But how are you positioning that?
Well, great. Thank you, Eddie. So let's talk a little bit about text and email campaigns. So this is an area where, I know many of you are doing emails one-on-one, and that's great. It allows you to track a lot of metric. But using a text or email platform, like for emails, it would be MailChimp, Constant Contact, something similar to that. With text messaging, there are actual services like Easy Texting where you can sign up and send so many texts to through like a subscription number and things like that. And then there's a new platform that's a little more expensive called Community. And I personally use it with some of our niche clients, especially on the entertainment side. But it actually gives you a local number where it's like they're texting with a real person. So you can text a mass group, but you can also text one on one when people engage through their app and platform. But think about this for a second. 98% of all text messages are open, and 95% of text messages are open within the first 3 minutes of being delivered. When you talk about attention and grabbing attention, this is one of the most effective ways to do it digitally right now. Um, I'm sure, like most of you, you guys are on your text messages like a hawk. Like something comes in, you get alerted. You either go back and revisit it, but it somehow either pops up in an alert or you're in your text message app when it comes in. 75% of customers want offers sent to them via text. They like it a lot better than receiving a phone call. And text messaging has a 45% response rate. Now, keep in mind, this is not an opportunity for you to push and just drive things down their throat like, oh, call ServPro. This is great when, you might have a weather event and there's some educational things you can put out there saying, hey, this is from your local neighborhood restoration company, XYZ. We just want to remind you to be on the lookout for this. If you're getting cold weather, make sure your hoses are removed from your outside faucet. I mean, provide value. And then you can have links and things that go back to your site, go back to what you're about. Maybe you have like a top 10 things to prepare for, and you send that out in a text message. When they go to the link, they're on your website and they can then explore what else you have to offer. Now, when it comes to emails, the open rate on emails has drastically dwindled since the late 90s, the early 2000s, even getting into 2021, but it still has a tremendous amount of value. So 21% of emails are open within the first hour of delivery. After that, you don't really see much open because it kind of gets lost in somebody's inbox. Email marketing can boast a 4,200% ROI. And this is what business to business direct marketers have seen across time if it's crafted correctly. When you start just throwing up and driving your agenda down people's throats, it's not going to have that type of articulation. But setting up meetings, setting up webinars, setting up educational insight for things that revolve around the restoration industry. That's how most of you are on this webinar today. We sent an email out, we posted it online, but we talked about, this was supposed to be education driven, and that's what it is. That's what we're talking about. Some other stat, and there's a lot of stats on text messaging and emailing right now, but the best days to send emails are Tuesday and Thursday. I've always, I'm not necessarily agreeing 100% because a lot of people have opinions about this, but I can tell you Monday morning is probably not the best day to send an email if you're trying to schedule something with somebody. People are coming off the weekend. They're getting settled in for their week. Friday, same thing. People are out the door early. They're looking forward to the weekend. And it doesn't matter how hungry you are, but you have to put yourself in the perception of other people. So typically they say Tuesday and Thursdays are the best days to send email. I'm not sure why Wednesday wouldn't be factored into that as well, being the middle of the week. But, this is just what other professional marketers have shared. And I would definitely encourage you to start with some of the recommendations and then adjust based on your open rates and things like that. And that's what's great about platforms like MailChimp and Constant Contact is it shows you how many people are opening the emails, how many times they open them, are they clicking on links in your email and things like that. So, overall, this is definitely a great way for you to explore, especially with the text messaging. I mean, it's so easy when you get a business card, somebody's cell phone number, or just walk in and say, hey, we offer a ton of valuable insight via tech, especially when there's weather events. Can I put you on my list just to keep you updated a couple times a month? Don't abuse it. You start sending multiple texts and start really abusing it, you're going to turn people off and get yourself blocked. But if you use it as a valuable asset, people will allow those to keep coming in, and at some point will probably engage with you.
Absolutely. And, I think that the other thing too, I did this all the time. Whenever we had a weather event, my top 25 clients, I would send out and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know if something should happen, I've got trucks ready to roll your way. I had a 100% response every time I sent that text message out. Thank you so much for thinking about us. The email side of it's your chance to be that educational resource and the differentiation between you and everyone else, about preventative things that you can do, to where you may not need to call me, in situations like this. If you, just like what Sean was saying, hey, just wanted to remind you to unhook your hoses. Last thing you want to do is see my truck roll up because your pipes froze. It's got a little bit of a comedy factor to it, but it's providing value to that client. So I couldn't agree with what Sean said more. So on the social media engagement side, now more than ever, we can connect with people, rather than the inefficiency of driving around. That windshield time doesn't count for work efficiency. Hoping that we could get past gatekeepers, be like, hey, I went out today because of the looming shutdowns and everything else. I had 15 targets on my list today and I was only able to connect with one, and you come back very discouraged when you could have spent your time trying to connect via LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram. I mean, your social media outlets are they're just tons of them, to be able to do it. So we can connect with them. We can learn about them. We can strategize about what dialogue we need to have. We can see their interests. You can't do that from just walking in someplace and talking to the gatekeeper. You're going to be doing that in your pre-call planning anyway on trying to do cold calling like that. But think about what all power you have at your disposal, by doing your research through the social media platforms and connecting through the social media platforms as well. People are more apt now to respond. I know that on LinkedIn, I'm engaged in conversations every single day, with people on LinkedIn, and, but you got to put in the work. You have to, and it's just like being good on the phones. You have to figure out what makes you good at social media engagement and have the ability to connect and incite dialogue. I know that this right here is Sean is a master of this domain, of the social media platform. He can talk about, just the increases that he's seen in exposure just from changing his algorithms on how much he's podcasting. He made it to where he's podcasting every single day, and he saw like a 400% increase in his listening audience just from consistency. He's connected to 20,000 people on LinkedIn. He's constantly engaged in communication on LinkedIn with somebody, and the same thing works for me. I've kind of taken a lot of his approach, to be able to do that, and have been able to win business without ever having a physical communication with anyone. It's such a monster tool that you have right there at your disposal that gives you everything you need to know about the customer. So, Sean, you have anything you want to expand on that?
No, I mean, same thing with social media. If you're not humanizing the process and you're trying to be a robot and a billboard for your company, it's not going to work. You have to share insight, you have to share testimonials, you have to share valuable content that people will engage with. If you're making it all about like a moving billboard and you just want to do the brand approach, I mean, you can do branding, by wearing the logos, wearing the hats, wearing having your vehicles in the background, introducing yourself as so and so with whatever company you work for. But this should be fun. This should be engaging in other people's content, like giving a crap about what they're doing and sharing what they're doing. So you're kind of putting that cross promotion out there, to kind of expand, the views and things like that. So, I think this is a really good opportunity for you to kind of start practicing how can you be valuable. I mean, at the end of the day, just ask yourself, do I find myself valuable? Do I feel like I'm providing value, or am I burdening people? And if you feel like you're burdening people, or you just don't have the self-awareness to realize that, then somebody needs to tell you. Because a lot of when it gets to virtual selling, and I touch on this a little bit, but self-awareness is a big thing. If you don't realize that you're like 99% of all the shitty salespeople that are out there, that's a problem. And there's a reason why so many people fail in sales, because they think it's easy. It's not easy. I mean, you could have the best product in the world, but when you start to really put your efforts and put your heart and put your passion into it, it makes a huge difference. And I can tell you, from social media to podcasting to your texts to emails to phone calls, it becomes radiant. And then they start to know you as, oh, you need to talk to him or her because they care and they know what they're talking about. And then you just became the educator in that space. And that can change everything overnight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So face-to-face meetings, let's talk about that. They are not dead. And I don't want you to think that they are, but there does need to be a paradigm shift in those meetings. Rather than, telling them all the great things that your company can do for them, it needs to be about what would you need from me. And we've talked about this over and over and over. And I don't think that we can drive this home hard enough, because I still to this day go out and go hear, when I'm riding with reps, I go hear them saying the same things over and over and over. We're the biggest, we're the best, we're the fastest, and this is what we can do for you. You need to script out some open-ended questions that will incite dialogue and uncover needs. Remember, we've talked about this over and over about the 30-70 rule. You should only be talking 30% of the time. 70% of that dialogue should be dominated by your prospective client because of the questions that you have asked to uncover needs. And based on those questions, a lot of times they'll take you down a path you never even thought to go. Like whenever I was talking about the risk manager with the grocery store chain, I would have never, ever thought to come up with a solution for spoilage. And I have hundreds of stories, like that, because it was where we asked, what would you need from me? What could I do for you? What if you were to take and say, these are your top 3 things that you would need from having a relationship with a company like mine, what would that look like? And you have to actively listen and take a notebook in and be taking notes and be really engaged in what that conversation is about. So it all boils down to this. And I want you guys to write this down, because I want this to become who you are in your internal culture. You need to be a solutions-based, consultative, servant's heart salesperson. Period. Solution-based. It's not about you, it's about them. Consultative. I'm the educational resource. I'm the subject matter expert. I can help you with these things. Servant's heart means that no matter what, I'm going to bend over backwards to ensure that you're taken care of type salesperson. And if you will move from the show up and throw up mentality to solution-based, consultative, servant's heart salesperson, it will change the game. It will differentiate you from everyone else, because corporate culture is not teaching that. Corporate culture is teaching law of averages, show up and throw up, trying to see perceived value rather than finding the need for the customer. And it will be a game changer for you. So here's the keys to success. It's going to be a little bit of reading. I'm not going to paraphrase it, because I think that this is so relevant. The first thing that you need to do is you need to step on the virtual stage with confidence. You have to understand, I'm going to be good on the phones. I'm going to be good in text and email campaigns. I'm going to be a better strategizer and planner for my week. I'm going to be good virtually, and I'm going to be good face-to-face. It has to start with you. Secondly, you have to accept and embrace that this is the new way of doing business. When the pandemic first struck, we thought it would pass. We thought things would be normal again weeks or months later. And we can't wait to get back in front of our customers. You can still get in front of your customers, but you're going to be doing it virtually. So you sit at home, you work on home improvement projects, but you never worked on improving you. You never worked on improving your skill set. Okay. And now that a year has passed, all the newness is worn off, like what we talked about. You have got to figure out how to develop these relationships in a virtual setting. But changing your mindset is a first step to getting comfortable with all of this and maximizing your future selling opportunities. The last key to your success, blending is essential. Video meetings are not the only important component of virtual selling. Remember that there are other methods that you can blend to build customers and prospect relationships. We talked about it: over the phones, social media engagement, text and email campaigns. You have to develop your network on LinkedIn every single day. Every single day, I set a goal of connecting with 50 people on LinkedIn every single day. You have to call customers to set appointments for new opportunities. You have to mail a handwritten thank you card to your top accounts. Salespeople can improve their virtual close ratios with video messaging. According to SalesLoft study, incorporating a video message into your sales process can increase your closing rate by up to 75%. Now is the time to start changing the way you do business if you want to go from salesperson to ultra high performer.
And that's really what it's about. If you listen to any of our webinars, if you go to YouTube, just type in Shawn Michael Lewis Eddie Green, you can see several of these webinars. I think we have some of them on our website tier level in the education section. We're going to make these more accessible in the future, but you'll notice we say the same thing over and over: out care, out educate. It's hard work. Changing behavior. These things work. I mean, you're talking to two seasoned sales professionals that have sold millions of dollars in their career, multiple millions of dollars, and have lived a good life from doing that. And that's why we love to get on these webinars. It's why we love spending time helping teach you, because we learn too. I mean, we learn and absorb from things that you guys are doing in the future as well. We put another poll up there. If you're interested in a one-on-one, do not hesitate to click yes. We'll email you some available times. We're extremely busy over the next few weeks, but we'll definitely find a time to get on the phone with you, and or a one-on-one webinar, because we want to help you, set you up for success. I mean, our clients last year collectively saw over $100 million in ROI, or revenue generated, just from organic digital marketing. That didn't include pay-per-click or anything like that. That was just a small percentage of Google call volume that was coming in and articulating the sales. So there's a huge depth when it comes to being that ultra high performer. We want to be there for you. So if you're interested in doing a one-on-one with us, just click yes on there. And now we're going to open it up for some questions. I know we kind of utilized the whole hour, but we will spend a few more minutes answering any questions for you. Go ahead and put them in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and we'll go ahead and conclude with that.
And I want to emphasize the one thing is that whether it's us, whether it's your mentors, whether it's your leadership team, nobody can help you if you don't ask for it. One of the keys to, I've always managed sales teams to tell them that they need to operate on 3 unique principalities, and that is to be smart, hungry, and humble. And the humble side of it is that if you need help, you need to ask. And, we are here to support you and help you. We love living vicariously through your success stories, and love knowing that we get to be a small part of that, but there's no stupid questions. And, and we're going to bend over backwards and make time for you to ensure that you are set up for success. So we can't help you if you don't ask. It's our honor and our privilege to be able to serve you.
All right. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box or in the Q&A box. Somebody's got to have a question. Come on.
Either that or we just did a really good job of teaching. So
I would be careful what you say, Eddie. They might start telling you what a horrible job we did.
Yeah. So guys, if you don't have it, we know we took up the entire hour. Feel free to email us, Eddie@tierlevel.com or Shawn@tierlevel.com, if you'd rather just ask the question individually. What is the one thing to focus on going into webinars? If you're going to host a webinar, the one thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that you've researched your client, to be able to show them how doing business with you is going to be different than doing business with anybody else in your specific field. How you gearing what you're going to talk with them about towards their specific needs, and personalizing all of that. It's going to take a lot of work on your side, to be able to do that, and possibly having some conversation with them prior to doing the webinar about what that's going to look like. But it needs to be personalized. It needs to be about them. So go ahead.
Similar question on, what do you specifically text people Do you always ask if you can text them first? It's a good practice to ask them if you can add them to your texting campaign or something like that. What I love about community is it actually gives you a local number so they can save that number in there. I'm not saying you can't just create one-on-one text campaigns by utilizing the contacts that you have in there, but it's real important that when you're doing that, you're providing links to educational resources, unless you can convey all of it in text. You do have to be extremely careful that you don't over text and it's just a bunch of words, because the thing that people like about text messaging is short to the point. One person I would recommend if you want to see how texting is done on a global, national level is Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a huge influencer with community. He provides a lot of insight on marketing, sales, and just growing a business. So I would highly recommend that you check out and subscribe to his community. You'll see he posts on LinkedIn and things like that all the time about how you can text his direct number. So it's like you're putting a number out instead of like a 57 or 474747 text join now to that. This is a little more humanizing. So community has been a lot in beta factor. I think you had to sign up to get approved with it, but there's definitely a lot of technology. I just happened to get on community early and I really like it, for some of our specific clients that we're working with.
We got a question from Scott that says, how do you recommend not being persistent, not to be persistent in blending your contact methods? Always ask, always want to learn. I don't think that there's anything wrong with persistence, or consistency. I think that, but being able to go out there and make subtle changes to the message that you're trying to convey will ensure that you're not just droning onto these people. That comes as a part of that being urgent, deliberate, and intentional. When you're going to do it, it takes a lot of work, guys. It's exhausting to do this correctly and to do this at a high level. So I think that you need to make sure that when you do it, that there are subtle changes involved, that it is humanizing, that it is geared towards them, and until you are getting the interaction that you desire. Jamie Cooper asks, how do you get people to engage with you on social media and get them to follow you? Do you message, comment with specific people, or businesses? Sean, you want to take that one? I'm kind of all over the board with the people that I'm connected with via LinkedIn, but have gotten value from all of them. Some of them have been harder to connect with, some of them not so much.
Yeah. So let me read that again real quick. How do you get people to engage with you on social media and get them to follow you? I think a lot of it is just providing consistent educational insight. That's how I built my following. I mean, I don't know a lot of them. A lot of them know me. I'll be at a conference or somewhere specifically in the restoration industry. Somebody will come up to me and be, "Oh, I read your content on LinkedIn or on your podcast or on your website." So I think it goes back to that. Are you providing value? Like, why would somebody want to be your friend in real life? It's because they value that relationship. So I think a lot of it is, and it can, if you don't have content to share, that's okay. Share other people's content that you find inspirational. Most of the content that I find and that I read has come from somebody else sharing it, not the person that published it or put it out for the first time. So a lot of engagement, if you look at mine and Eddie's LinkedIn post, we are sharing other authors, other speakers, other business leaders, other people in the restoration industry information, and we don't come up with all of it ourselves. And sometimes you can commentate, maybe you disagree with something and you can write a whole article on that. So now when you do that, you tag that article, now you might get people that disagree with you, but you're going to create some type of dialogue, even though it might look negative. It's kind of a good process that you can actually, if you really truly believe in something and feel that you have a strong stance on it, not to create an all-out war, but it's just a great way to start generating content. So I think it's, and then when you message people, don't message them like you probably see this on LinkedIn all the time. "Hi, I'm so-and-so. Do you need this? And we do this," and blah, blah, blah. And it's like a paragraph. It's spam. It's click, delete, spam, bam, it's gone. So I think you have to really focus on like not being that annoying personality on these channels, but provide value, share value. And then when somebody comments on something, engage back with them, build those relationships one by one. A lot of people are like, "Well, I did a podcast or I did something and I only got one follower." That's one more follower than you didn't have that you didn't have yesterday. So you have to nourish the first 5, the first 10, and then you build that community. And the better you build that, the long term, then those 5 and those 10 and those 15 and 20 people are going to tell more people. Next thing you know, you have 100, 200, 300, 1,000, and it just continues to grow. But if you're in a local market, like I work a lot nationally, internationally, like Eddie, we're much broader base, but you might be very successful with 500 to 1,000 solid contacts in your local region if that's where you're looking to cultivate your business.
Absolutely. John Leslie asked, he said, in regards to LinkedIn, is it kosher to market them on LinkedIn after they have become a connection? And should I ask for a meeting on there? I think absolutely you can. Again, it's how you go about it. One of my favorite things to engage with people, especially in the restoration industry, even if I'm going after to position digital marketing for them, is I'll talk about my past. And be like, I'm a former director of business development for a top 20 Servpro franchise. I was a commercial sales specialist. I'd love to get on a phone call with you and discuss best practices. And more often, say I'm a fan of following you on LinkedIn. I love the content that you put out there, and I'd really like to talk to you about best practices. Then whenever I get them on the phone, or get them on a Zoom call, then at that point I can transition into, oh, by the way, who are you guys currently using for your digital marketing? And kind of segue that conversation over. So I think it's how you approach it. I think if you come out guns blazing the minute they connect, it's probably a big turnoff. I hate the ones that have to be real honest with you, I connect with them and they have a preloaded message the minute I hit accept connection. And then there's a preloaded paragraph about how they can help me get more business to business contacts. I immediately disconnect from those people. Because they didn't really provide me with any value. They all they did was blanket market me, which was no humanizing effect. So, I think you got to be careful in how you do it, but I think absolutely it's definitely okay to market them, but try to connect with them on a personal level first, as opposed to just shotgun blasting them with your agenda. So now is also a great time to participate or join local chambers and associations with those who you'd like to do business with. Yep, totally agree. As people start to increase the meetings and things like that, or doing it virtually, organizational involvement, I think that's something we should definitely approach in a future webinar about setting yourself up for success. So Scott, that may end up spawning a whole other webinar right there. So thanks for bringing that up. All right, does anybody else have any questions? Looks like we held on to you guys for quite some time. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. Does anybody else have any additional questions before we get off of here? Well, thank you guys so much. We definitely appreciate everybody here. If you'd like that one-on-one, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're always happy to be able to do that. I hope you guys have an absolutely blessed rest of the week. And that you guys have all the success that you could ever hope or dream of. So thank you guys for taking time out with Sean and I today. It's always our pleasure and honor to talk to you, and you have a fantastic week.
Have a great week. We'll talk to you guys soon.